Welcome. Welcome to the Coaching Circle. We're really glad to have you here with us. This is a coaching circle. We meet here every week to have discussions about life and about things that come up on the day to day. I am Shiro, one of your hosts, and I have a podcast called Lost in Our Footies. I run a website called shirondune.com and have just written a book called Date Like Cleopatra. The good girl flips the script. That's me.
Hi, I'm Nikki, and I have a YouTube channel, and it's all about the performer's mindset and performance anxiety.
And I'm Alex. I have a YouTube channel called Alex Antoinette, and I also have a website, alexantoinette.com, where you can book for coaching, and I also write some blogs as well, connecting back to your intuition, your inner truth, and finding what is the best for you.
Hello, I'm Gubi. I'm a life.
Great, Kubi. So, welcome again, everybody. Our session today is about relationship standards. We are having a conversation just before this, and sometimes I think we should record some of those conversations because there's so much that comes out. We were talking about relationships, and both friendships and romantic relationships, and whether or not we should have standards, can have standards, and what those standards should be. If I start with just a quick commentary on myself, for the longest time, I probably just found myself in relationships, both friendships and romantic relationships, without setting too much time to sit back and think about what is it that I'd want in a friend? What is it that I'd want in a romantic relationship? And in this conversation, we want to delve a little more into that. Who wants to say something about standards? Just to kick us off.
I guess I would say for standards, it's going to be very unique to like the individual. But I think that there's some like common things that a lot of people may want, but may negotiate on that they shouldn't be. So, for example, for me, I'm pretty big on like respect, and other people, they may seem that they want to have respect, but then they're the ones being disrespectful to somebody else. So they don't uphold the standard that they expect others with them. So if you have a value or a certain standard, I do think like you have to uphold it as well, just to be consistent with your message. You can't sit here and be like, oh, I want people who are loyal, but you're never like loyal and committed to them. I want somebody who is all in, but then you're not all in with your partner, for example. So I think it really kind of keeps us in check with ourselves. We're not asking somebody to do something that we ourselves couldn't uphold to.
Yeah, I would add to that, to the respect. For me, honesty is very important and reliability. So, of course, I hold myself to those standards. If for some reason I cannot do what I said I would say, I'm at least going to say on time that I'm not able to do it. And if that happens again and again, I have to look at myself, why does that keep happening? Because that's a standard that's very important for me. And it's in friendships and of course with romantic relationships. And I think the having high standards in your friendships, that's going to set the tone for high standards in romantic relationships. Because if you have high standards with yourself in your friendships, you're going to have it with everyone, with people you just meet, and eventually with your romantic partner. So it is just very important. And I'm going to quote something I love. It's how I do one thing is how I do everything.
I agree as well. It's about having, if you have those standards with other people, it's about being that person and having those standards with yourself as well.
I think that's really beautiful. And it goes back to the saying that you cannot love unless you love yourself. And it's something we hear and maybe take a little bit for granted, that loving yourself can you can manifest self-love in different ways. So it's one thing to just say, yes, of course I love myself, but it's another thing to actually see yourself doing things that let the entirety of you know that yes, we love ourselves. Yeah. Mm.
I wanted to say something that you said, Gooby, is you said something about friendships, like friendships that you have kind of set the standard for your relationships. And I feel like that's kind of very triggering for a lot of people who maybe not have like the best of friends. And maybe that's your cue, guys, to like wake up and have better friendships, because they're having a significant influence on what you think is possible for you. If you're likely to put up with all this BS from these so-called friends, you're likely gonna deal with that BS with your own partners. And it's just gonna be more amplified. So if you have a core group of girlfriends around you that love, support you, that respect you, that are reliable, that are honest, that are communicative, all those wonderful things, and that you are for them, chances are when you go out in the world and you're gonna be dating other people, you have this same set of standards that you have for those relationships now. You're like, okay. And then you start to think of your best friends, like the ones that are keeping you high vibe. You're like, dang, like would they approve? Not from a sense that, oh my gosh, are they judging this dynamic? And I wonder what they would think. But I think it kind of makes you open your eyes a bit and been like, would they see me as settling with this person, or am I actually doing this for like my highest and best good? Like, is this person actually good for me? So I think it's inspiring when you have the right girlfriends around you, when you have the right friends around you, you date differently because you're like, they need to be at the same level like as my friends are, or even better, because the people that you're with romantically should inspire you to become a better version of yourself. But if they're not, they're bringing you down. And when the friends that you're around can sense that and they can see a change in you, not for the better.
When you know your friends are not going to be okay with your partner, that's a huge red flag. Huge.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's also that your friends act like a mirror for you. So if you do have these high standard friends, the reason that you ask yourself what they would say is because you're aspiring to be as high value as they are. That is the goal that you have. And if in your mind you think that they'd say something that you're selling yourself short, then that is actually you having a conversation with yourself and raising yourself up. So that's absolutely true. And the same is true the other way around. If you have friends who are dragging you down, then that also is acting as a mirror, because you're a full range of stuff. you have the qualities you're aspiring towards, and you have the qualities you're trying to leave behind. And if the mirror that is constantly around you is showing you the elements that you do not want, it makes you feel that those elements are okay. So low vibe friends who tell you that this kind of who applaud when you're in a bad situation, when you're in a bad relation, when you're in a situationship, whatever it is, those are people to cut off from your surroundings, because they're not actually there for you, and they're not there for the higher self you're aspiring to be.
It's very simple. If I message a person and they don't answer for 3 days, I feel like, okay, I can also answer only in 3 days. Like immediately, let's go down. The appointment is, and it just happened to me a few days ago. It was a bodywork appointment. They canceled to me an hour before. I kind of already knew I'm not. I don't think I'm going to work with that person anymore. So it goes very fast, yeah. And I especially see it like if they don't have high standards towards me, I feel I don't need to have high standards back. So very careful there, because we want to keep our high standards.
I think sometimes we are in situations where it's like, well, they hurt me, so I gotta hurt them back 10 times more or something, you know what I mean? But it's like now you're getting pulled out of your own character and you're just as bad as them. So it's like, well, if somebody does something to me, why am I going to do the same thing back? I'd rather just remove them from my life altogether because I'm not going to let somebody have them change who I am or my character and who I know myself to be because in the heat of the moment I got upset. Like I know that's like to me I would be regretful later because it's like that's not who I am and I'm not going to be that triggered enough to let somebody pull me down to their level. And so I think cultivating like the greatest friends around me has helped me to challenge myself to rise above and choose the higher path because that's who I am and that's who I want to be
Yes.
going forward.
It's I'm not looking for revenge. I level up. If
Yes,
that happens,
exactly.
time to level up.
Mhm. Mhm. It's like, thank you for showing me that's who you are. We're not a match, and thank goodness, because I'm moving on. Like, eventually people do reveal themselves, and you can make a decision and choose to respond rather than emotionally react and make it worse for yourself.
What do you do when you've gotten to that point? Someone has shown you who they are, and you've realized this is not a match, this is not what I want. But somewhere along the line, you start dancing with scarcity. You start telling yourself, but oh, if I let this one go, maybe there'll be no other one. So the scarcity mindset starts finding its way back in. And you find yourself looking at looking at the phone and maybe calling them or going for that thing that they're going for. How do you catch that and what do you do with it? How do you manage that?
I've been there in the past, and it just really ends badly. We talked about that in the last episode is with the boundaries. I'm very aware now that if something is not right, I need to say it, and if it's time to cut someone off, I have to do it. In the past, because it's not gonna get better. It's just gonna happen again and again and again, and in a bigger scale, and a bigger scale, and a bigger scale. If you don't want to see, life is gonna make you see it every time.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. You've got to have the difficult conversations at the beginning of any relationship, because if you don't, it is just going to end. Like, it's just going to get worse and end badly. So if you can think about and project what you don't want, then that will give you leverage to have the difficult conversation in the first place, because you know that you want to have a healthy relationship. If you can switch your value to I want to have a healthy relationship rather than I need to have loads of friends, then that'll help you to catch it, I think, in the beginning and have those, difficult conversations. And a lot of the time, if you do have those conversations, people respect you more anyway for being upfront and honest, if they're a healthy person. And then it can make you closer as well to that person.
Yeah, I think that it's like that mindset rarely is in just one area of your life. The scarcity mindset, it bleeds into other aspects. So, like we was saying, how you do one thing is like how you do everything. And so if you feel like that in one aspect, it probably bleeds into like money or opportunities or friendships or relationships, like whatever, or health. It's it bleeds into other areas and you can kind of see like the patterns of how that limited thinking manifests in other aspects of your life. And going back to you guys, what you were saying, Nikki, too, about the hard conversations, I think it's just being intentional, right? If me having hard conversations freak you out, then maybe we're just not a match. And I'd rather know that now than down the line. And then there's other people that be like, oh, well, why are you being too serious in the very beginning when getting to know people? And I'm like, I'm not wasting my time. I'm an intentional person. All right. So I'm looking for people that are the same way as me. And in fact, I find it refreshing if I do come across somebody like myself because it's like that's kind of maybe not deemed as common. So when I do that and I am showing up like that for other people, like they're in awe. They're like, wow, like this is amazing. But like then they're taken aback because that's not something that they're experiencing. So they do tend to open up a little bit more or tend to receive that well. And it also encourages them to do that for like for me and for other people. But sometimes it takes just knowing that one person is doing this for them to like activate it within themselves to have these conversations with others too. So it's almost depending on who you talk to, it could be very triggering and they're like repelled in the other direction as they should. Or it's activating for them to want to be like, dang, like it gives them like the insight to be like, I want to like level up and be intentional with the people that I'm dating or with the friendships that I'm having. So it can have one or two like effects. I don't really think that there's like a neutral middle ground, that there is with people. Real quick based on their response, like if they have an open mindset or an open-minded mindset or like a scarcity, say it's like an abundant mindset or a scarcity mindset, or yeah, it's usually one or the other.
Yeah, it gives them permission to open up too about things if they want to talk. So the open-minded people, the growth mindset people, they will be very happy with us if we start the conversation. It just needs one person of the two to start it one time. Then that's rolling. Okay, something happened. I need to talk to you about it. Again, it gets easier. Well, it might not be super easy, but it gets easier if you're just used to talking about stuff with people. It gets easier to talk with that person, with different people. It's just a way of doing.
I think it's a common comment to hear that there are no men in my town. There are no good men in my town. There are no good men in my area. There are no good men XYZ. Is that part of the scarcity mindset?
Yes, absolutely.
And if it is, then why are there so many people who believe this? And how do they get out of it?
Well, I have a few thoughts on that. So hold
Go
on, give
ahead.
me a second. All right. One is, for example, if that is somebody in my life that told me that, I would have been like, you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. Let me hear this out. Hear it out. I don't try to change people's minds anymore. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of my time trying to change people's minds on something they're dead set on. Because think about it. If you assume that there's no available men out there, you're going to look through life through this filter, and you yourself are going to be acting completely differently than somebody who felt like there was an abundance of amazing men out there. You're going to be not as approachable. You're not going to be as, you're going to perceive any action that a man does as creepy or weird. You're going to see them as a potential threat, and and when a guy does show interest, you're like, ew, like what's he doing talking to me? You're coming from it at a weird angle. So you have to ask yourself, are you really available and wanting to have a relationship right now? And you really have to be honest with yourself first, because if you did, then you would start to be like, does this belief serve me? And if it doesn't, what can I do to change that? And surround yourself with people who are in amazing relationships. If you don't have people in your life that have amazing relationships, there are people online. There's public figures online, or other people that you can aspire to have relationships like. But are you going to let that limit you if you really, really want it? If it's something you really want, there's always going to be desire there for it. But you're not doing yourself any favors by coming at from that way of thinking. And honestly, another thing too is, why would somebody want to date you if you're so negative? Like you're not even aware of how you're coming off right now. You're literally a turn off to people. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I stopped talking to people that have that limited mindset. I'm like, okay, that's fine. That's what you want to believe. I'm not here to contradict it. Believe what you want to believe. Let me know how that's working for you. And when you're willing to change, let's talk.
It's like with everything, the core is we have to believe it. wanting a relationship, wanting better health, wanting our business to grow, we have to believe it. If we don't believe it, that's like the base of all the things we want.
Mm-hmm.
And I was watching some content yesterday. It was a coach. I can't remember his name, but he was talking about this conversation, and part of what he said was that sometimes you do not know it. You there's a part of you that is blocking these relationships. So you think that when you go out there and look around, you don't see any relationships, and this is something I've experienced myself. But the reality of it is that there is a reason somewhere behind that is making you not want to be in a relationship. It could be trauma. That's something that can be one of the effects of trauma that has not yet been resolved. That you show up in the world in a particular way, but there's some truths behind that you yourself are not necessarily aware of. So until you do that kind of introspection and inner work to understand your own beliefs and where they stem from, and if you want to change them, then you might be turning up and thinking that you might have the scarcity mentality without realizing it. So it takes a bit of work.
And this also goes back to the victim mindset too. There's no available men out there. There's no, good men out there.
Yeah, I used, well, until very recently, I've had like a scarcity mindset.
Yeah. And it's like it almost forces that person who's saying it not to work on themselves because they're blaming it on something outside of them. Oh, there's no available men out there, so why even work on myself? Well, you should work on yourself to see that you are deserving an amazing, loving, healthy relationship. And once you start working on yourself, you will start to believe it and start to see there's all these great people out there. And now you get to come from an empowering place. It's like, is this a right fit for me rather than do they like me? Or I guess I'll have to like put up with the hookup culture. Nobody has to put up with that. There's a reason why that's happening. It's because people have lowered their standards thinking that that's the normal, but we've made that the normal when we ourselves have thought everyone else was doing it, so we had to do it, and so the bar is so low. I'm like, no, this is the time to double down on our standards and keep them high. And for people who are thinking, are my standards too high? They're not, because for the right people, they're like, thank God, like you're not acting like this like everyone else is. So it takes being strong-willed and not going against your standards and your non-negotiables, because there's other people like you out there, and you have to trust that you will come in contact with them, and that's where the abundance mindset is. The reason we lower our standards or get rid of them is because we're from a scarcity mindset. So we have to change the inner work of being from a scarcity mindset to abundant one. It's like all goes back to the self at the end of the day.
And I'll tie it in also with what you've mentioned, Nikki, because part of the reason I didn't have standards and didn't realize that I had standards, because of that, then I was in the scarcity mindset, and then life starts happening to you. So this realization that you actually get to choose, you have some agency, you get to say that this is what you want. It's so liberating. And yes, you shall find people outside there who do not agree with your standards. And sometimes they might try to change them. They'll challenge you. They'll challenge you and tell you that's ridiculous. You'll never find that. That's unheard of. It doesn't happen. And that could be the universe testing you, asking you, have you really decided that these are the standards that you want? And are you going to stick by them? Because if you're choosing between something terrible and something great, that's really not much of a debate there. So trust in the process, trust in letting go of the the old reality that you had, stepping into the new reality where you get to be surrounded by people who actually care for you after having discovered what it means to care for yourself.
Even if you go through a period of not having a lot of friends or being on your own. That is sometimes necessary if you do a quantum jump, so that people fall away. But then eventually, if you keep working on yourself and you keep showing up as a new person, you will attract new things in your life. But you have to let go of what's not right for you anymore. You have to let go of it, whatever the conditions. Even if then you can't wait till you have the new to let go of the old. It's the opposite. You have to let go of the old, and then the new may appear, because it's your energy, it's your vibration who attracts that. And so the continuous work on keeping your vibrations high is the most important.
Great. So a quick touch on the values. How do you find out? So if you've figured out what your own values are, how do you figure out if the people who you've surrounded yourself with have similar or the same values?
Usually you find out pretty fast that you don't need to test people. Life will bring in tests and examples for you.
Nice.
And then you'll figure it out, whether it's, for example, when you go eating together, we talked about the tips, or about who pays, or when you, in little things, it shows up.
I do agree with Gooby on that, in the littlest things too. And sometimes you got to just sit back and let people reveal themselves, because they will. You know, they can only hold a mask for so long. And I feel like when you're in tune with yourself, you're able to read people a lot better. So you can kind of sense if somebody is not fully showing up authentically, because when they are, they have nothing to hide. They're like, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. And they're communicative in that sense. And they're not afraid to ruffle feathers or have a different opinion, because they're showing up as themselves. And at that point, it's more of a matter of, do our values align, rather than am I being liked by this person? Am I being validated by this person? So I think you have to make your judgment calls based on your values, rather than whether or not someone likes you or not. So sticking true to that and making decisions based on your values. So if, like Gooby was saying earlier, you know, an honest person is super important, right? But if you yourself aren't an honest person, how are you going to see that characteristic in somebody else and honor that when you're not honoring that within you? So I think you have to literally live the values that are important for you. And you can see that there's like a saying, it's like, if you spot it, you got it. So it's like you can see that same characteristic in other people, and you can tell when when your values are clashing, or maybe they're just an inconsistent person in itself, and that's like that's like unstable for you, and you're like, you know what, I don't deal, for me consistency is huge. And so I know really quick if somebody is inconsistent, like, okay, it's an automatic turn off. It's really hard to come back from that, because it's a pattern. It's a character flaw, usually from like that person. So it's not something I'm making myself available for. I pull my energy back and literally say with my energy, I'm not available for this.
Yeah, really great. Just to catch you up, Nikki, we're just talking about values, in case you're wondering what's all this, how to recognize whether or not the people we've surrounded ourselves with have similar values. And I just want to catch on what you've said, Alex. The other side of figuring out whether or not someone is authentic is being authentic yourself, in that whatever your values are you living, are the things you do aligned to whatever your value is it, are you showing up as yourself? Do you feel comfortable enough in yourself to not have to put on a mask when you're around other people, to just come out authentically and say, people, this is me. This is me. I like drinking hot water. Take it or leave it. This is just how I do. Because if you're able to do that, then that's when you can create the space, first of all, for other people to also be authentic, because then you show that safety. You feel secure enough in yourself to be yourself. Then the people around you can bring out the same. And also your intuition is just there. It's always, even without having had a conversation with someone, there's just the feel. You can get a feel from someone that here, this is not my person. And you don't need to question the why, the how. There doesn't need to be a long list that you're ticking off of things they've done or haven't done. If your intuition tells you go, go.
And it's not a matter of wrong or right either. I
Yeah.
wanted to make it clear with that.
Mm.
Sometimes we're not a match for people, and it doesn't make them wrong, and it doesn't make,
Yeah.
you know, us wrong or anything like that. It's just not an alignment, is what I'm saying. Like a lot of people feel like, oh, like this person doesn't like rejected me, like they hate me, like I'm bad. I'm like, no, like you guys honestly aren't a good match, and it's okay. Like it's okay. Like let it be okay that you guys aren't an energetic match, and trust that somebody that's more in alignment for you will be will be in your life, because the more you are yourself and the more you act from those values, the more you will see and attract people that are coming from that same value set of values as well. So you guys, you're gonna later thank me to be like, oh my God, thank goodness, like you kind of shed some light on that, because now I have the best of friends ever. And if you feel like you have to put on a mask around certain people, they're not your people. They're not for you. And I think, not to be, you know, very sad and like very sad here, but we're all going to die one day, you know? So I think our biggest regret is not showing up authentically. No one's going to be like, oh, I wish I would have more, you know, been masking more. No, no one's going to say that. They're going to be like, I wish I lived my life more authentically and been myself, or had the courage to speak my truth, or had the courage to do the thing that scares me, and I chose to do it anyway. You know, that is a life worth living, because you're being you, and through that, you find your people, and they, you know, find you, and it's like it's a win-win.
I think that's a big key, isn't it, about being okay with yourself and saying that it's okay if other people don't like me, and it's okay. Yeah, it's okay if we're not each other's person, and not to get all in ego about it and get offended about it. Just to be like, that's just what it is, and that's fine. I have my people, and they have their people.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, rejection is redirection. And even be that I'm so advanced in my inner work and stuff that they get scared to be around me, because they know they're gonna have to stand up for themselves. They're gonna have to stand up to higher standards being around me. It can be something like that. So to think that someone rejects you, that you're not good enough, that's completely wrong thinking. I just want to point that out.
Absolutely. And I have a challenge for our homework for our listeners. It's something I was doing earlier today, an inner work prompt on figuring out whether or not you're showing up authentically. We tend to think the best of ourselves, which is good. But sometimes that can make us a little blind to some of the things we do. And the prompt is to look at yourself and see if there is any untruth that you communicate, whether orally or just in the things that you do, an untruth about yourself, or just any kind of untruth, because this could be a means of not coming up authentically. It could be something that you, at some level, don't like about your hair or something like that. So you go out of your way to hide your hair or something like that. Look into your life and journal about it. See if there's any section, any part of you that you are not bringing out. You don't feel free to bring out, even to yourself. And this can help you see the path towards authenticity. Okay. I do believe those are the notes that we had today. Who wants to go in with some final thoughts?
My thoughts are that it's, or my experience that I've had with this is that if I can be okay with myself and love myself, then that's the kind of the ground for then having values and then having standards in relationships. So it all kind of comes back to myself and being okay with being me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Like my standards I put for myself, for my friends, for my relationships, it's the standard I put in general that makes it.
Yeah, and if you don't have the best of friends surrounding you right now, you really have to let them go because it has a more of a negative effect on you in the long term than it does just being by yourself because they're likely going to impose their limiting beliefs onto you because if you're likely dealing with not the best of friends, you're likely going to attract partners that are going to be of that really low caliber as well. So having a strong friendship group is going to help level up your standards and help you keep those standards in check because you know you deserve the best. And these friends genuinely want to see you happy, successful, healthy, amazing. And they're coming at from it like in good intentions, not in a judging way. So it inspires you to want to pick better partners and let go of partners that maybe 80% of the way there, but with the wrong group of friends you would have settled and not have been happy in the long run and would have had to like break up with that person anyway. So only you can really make those decisions, like when you hold yourself accountable and have the friendship groups to help support you in that. And it bleeds into everything else in your life.
Mm. And I'll just add on to that the price of settling is very high. With this one life that we know of, if you settle for something that is less than what you wanted, then you've already set yourself up to be unhappy. If you desired it, it means that you can achieve it. It means that it's yours. So whatever it is that you desire is available for you just by the dint of the fact that you are capable of desiring it. So don't settle. Yeah. That is it from us today. We thank you so much for having joined us. This is the Coaching Circle. Meet us here again next week at the same time, at the same place. And we appreciate your time. Bye-bye.
Bye.